Hi all, welcome to scriptQA. So today we are going to learn the data types. Okay, so before that, what is meant by data types? Okay, so data types is used to represent the type of variable. Data type is used to represent the type of variable. Now, what is variable? Okay, so for that, I'll quickly open the notepad. Okay, now if you see, if I want to store something in one container. So let's say I'm having one container A, okay, and in which I want to store the value 20. So I will make the statement A is equal to 20. Okay. So now here A is one container. All right. So this is called as a variable. So variable is nothing but container to store the value. Variable is container to store the value. Now this particular variable your compiler is not going to understand. Why? Because it's not having type, so compiler will be confused which type of variable it is. So we have to compulsory provide the type of this particular variable, because Java is a strictly type language, right? So we have to provide the type of variable. So let's say I'm giving the type as a int. Okay, so now int is the data type in this case. Okay, so as per our first statement, okay, data type is used to represent the type of variable. So first statement is data type is used to represent type of variable. Variable is nothing but container to store the value. Okay, so now next statement. Okay, so data type help to decide the memory of the variable. So how much memory will required if you are storing something? Let's say I'm storing A is equal to 20. All right. So how much memory will require to store the 20? All right. So that will be also decide on the basis of what type of variable I'm declaring. Okay, so we will discuss this thing later on once we are familiar with the how much size each and every variable will take. Okay, but as of now, just remember it helps to decide the memory of the variable. And third point is it help to decide the range value as well. It help to decide the range value. Okay, so each and every data type having their own ranges. Okay, so that as well we'll discuss in next slide. Okay, so this is about the data type. So first one, data type is a used to represent the type of variable. Data type help to decide the memory. Okay, and data type is used to is help to decide the ranges as well. Okay, now next. Okay, so how many data types are available? Okay, so for the Java, there are two types of data types available. Okay, so first data type, that is the primitive data type, and second data type, that is the reference data type, or you can say the non-primitive data type. Okay, there is one third type of data type as well available, that is called as the special data type, which is for mainly for the null. But you can say the two types of data types available. One is the primary data type, and second one is the reference data type. Okay, now, okay, so coming to the primitive data type. So how many primitive data types available? Okay, so there are 8 primitive data types available. If you see here, okay, byte, short, int, long, float, double, character, and boolean. Okay, byte, short, int, long, float, double, character, and boolean. So these are the 8 primitive data types available. Okay, so we have seen two types of data types available: primitive and reference, or you can say the non-primitive, primitive and non-primitive. Okay, so in primitive there are 8 data types available: byte, short, int, long, float, double, character, and boolean. Now these are the different types available that you can provide to any variable. Okay, and depending on that, compiler will assign the size as well. At the time of compilation, it will allocate some size as well. So how much size, if I'm declaring byte variable, right? So how much size it will be taken? So if you see, if you are having byte variable, it will take the 1 byte. Okay, so if I'm having short, it will take the 2 bytes. For the integer, it will take the 4 byte. For the long, it will take the 8 byte. Float, it will take the 4 byte. Double, it will take the 8 byte. Character 1 and boolean, it will not take any size. Okay, now we are clear about the each and every data type will have their own size. If I'm declaring something as an integer, that means it will take the 4 byte. Okay, if I'm declaring something double, right, so it will take the 8 byte. Okay, now there are some ranges as well. Okay, so if you see last column, it's saying the ranges for each and every variable. Okay, if you see ranges for the byte, it will be 128 minus 128 byte to the 130 sorry, it will be 127. Okay, not 137, 127. Okay, similarly for the short, so this is the range. For the int, this is the range. For the float, it will single precision. For the double precision. Character, it will store the unique character. Okay, so there will be no numeric ranges. And for the boolean, it will store the true and false value. Okay, as well there are some default value as well. What is meant by default? If you're not, suppose for example I'm declaring the variable like this. Okay, int a. Okay, com. I'm not assigning any value for the a, right? So in that case, how much or what is the exact value it will be stored? In case of numeric, okay, so it will store the 0. Okay, for the float and double, it will store the 0.0 and 0.0. Okay, for the character, it will store the space. Okay, and for the boolean, it will store the false. By default value for the boolean, it will be false. All right, so coming to the previous slide. Okay, now second point I talked about, right? It helped to decide the memory for the variable. So if it will be clear, right? So how it will help to decide the memory? As we know, right, each and every variable will have some size, so it will help to decide the memory as well. And ranges, okay, each and every variable having no, sorry, each and every data type will be having ranges. So this is the ranges available, right? So this is about the data types, and mainly we focused about the 8 primitive data types. In this particular session, we will mainly focus on primitive data types only. Okay, so now what I will do, I will quickly open the Eclipse and I will show you how to declare the variable, and how what we have said, like, okay, ranges and all, we will try to uh, see it practically. Okay, so now I will open the Eclipse. Okay, so here I have already created one project, Corejava. In that, I will create the class. So I'll say data types. I'll take the public static void and I'll just say finish. Okay. So now, if you see here, so I'll go to the slide. Okay. So first one is the byte. So how to create the byte variable? Okay. So I'll say byte b is equal to, let's say I'm saying storing the 10. Okay, so it will created one byte variable and 10 will be stored inside the b. Okay, so b is basically variable. We can say that it's container. Okay, so in that container we are storing some value. So I want to print, so I'll simply say system.out.println and I'll print the b. So let's print the b. Now if I running this, it will print the 10. See, right? Now similarly, I told, like, it will be having some ranges, right? So what ranges for the byte? It will be 128 to 120, minus 128 to minus 127. 127. Okay. Now what I will do, I'll try to store here. Let's say 120 or maybe 130. Okay, so I'm storing the 130. As soon as I'm giving the value 130 here, it's giving the error. What error it's giving? So it's cannot convert from the int to byte. That means this particular value is coming inside the integer range and you're storing that into the byte, so it will not possible. So either you have to change the data type, or you have to decrease the value. Let's say I'm storing the 127. 127 will allow, 128 will not allow, because its range is minus 128 to plus 127. All right, so it will allowed here 127 but not 128, because it's having some ranges, right? So now this is how we can create the byte variable. Okay, similarly, short, int and long. Okay, so I will create one variable. Okay, let's say short. Okay, it will be stored, let's say s is equal to, I'm storing some random number 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, now in this case it's not giving, I'm having a little bigger number, but it's not, still not giving the any error. Why? Because see, when I'm saying short, okay, the short range is quite big. Okay, so it will store the number till this particular range. Okay, so it will not give the any error for this particular number. Okay, similarly I can print this number. Okay, so system dot out dot println, and then s, so it will print the value of s. Okay, so I will simply run this and it works, right? So similarly you can store, similarly you can int I is equal to, let's say, this number. Okay, and I will print I. Similarly, long L is equal to this number, and I'll say system dot out dot print L. Okay, and now when I'm printing this, it will print the actual value which I stored in this particular variables. All right, so till here, what is all these three bit, sorry, byte, short, int, long, all these are storing the integer value. Integer value means non-decimal point value. Okay, non-decimal point value. Okay, uh, now what if, I want to store the number which is having decimal point. Okay, so for example, inside the int, let's say x, I'm storing the 20.30. Right. So in Java, it will not allow to store you 20.30. Why? Because this is decimal point number. Okay. So for that, there are special data types available. So you have to use those data types. So, okay. Which data types available? Okay. So first one is the float. F is equal to, let's say, I can store here like 30.20, but make sure you have to provide the F here. Okay, so it will store the floating point number, and for the double I will store the double. D is equal to, let's say, 20.30. Okay, here I don't have to provide the F or D. Okay, D is fine. If you are providing D, it will not give any error, so it will understand this is the double number. But in case of float, compulsory you have to provide the F. Okay, now now then why we have two different for the float and double? Because of ranges. Okay, so float is having a little shorter range, and double will have, little longer range, right? So if you want to store big number, in that case you have to use the double. You have to store the short number, right? So you can use the float number. Okay, and it will save the memory as well accordingly, right? How it will store the memory? So let's say I'm having short, I want to store the short number, right, which is not that much of big, right? So in that case I will use the float, and float is having memory 4 bytes only. Okay, what if, I'm using double? it will be use the 8 byte. So that means 4 byte will be wasted. All right. So depending on how much, I mean, what big number you are storing, you have to decide the which variable you can take, sorry, which data type you can take. All right. So this is about the float. All right. Now coming back to the uh, remaining. Okay. So character and boolean. Okay. So character, you can store the only one character. Okay. So let's say char c is equal to, let's say I'm storing, for that you have to provide the single quote, and let's say I'm storing the a. Okay, inside the c I'm storing the a, so I'll say system dot out dot print c. Okay, just print the c. Okay, so what is the value of c? That is the a, right? So it will print the a. If you see, it's printing the a now, right? So now last data types is the boolean. Okay, so boolean, how you can create the boolean variable? So you have to say boolean b, boolean b is equal to, let's say I'm giving the different name for this boolean. Okay, so let's say I'm giving the uh, uh, flag is equal to true. Okay, so here I can only store the true and false value. So I'm storing here true, I can store here false as well, false. Okay, and then I will print the system dot flag. All right, so ideally it should print the false. Why? Because I have stored the false value here in this particular. If you see, it's printing the false here. All right, so this is how we can create the variables. Okay, now there are some default values as well for this variable, but in I'm writing this inside the method. Okay, so this is inside the method, so here I cannot store the blank variable. So what I will do, I'll make here one variable a is equal to, or maybe static int a. Okay, and I'm not storing any value for the a, but this is integer, and we know that if it is byte short int long, default value will be stored 0, right? So if I'm printing this, so let's print it. So I'm saying system dot out dot print a, right? So now what is the value of a? We don't have anything inside the a. All right, so it should print the 0. Okay, so it's printing the 0. Okay, now what I will do, I will take the double float. Okay, float or double. Okay, so I'll say float a, and similarly I'm printing the a. So now what default value will be float printing? It will be 0, 0.0. Okay, so it's printing the 0, 0.0. Okay, what if I'm storing some boolean, right? So boolean, it will be default value will be the 0, right? Sorry, default value will be the false. All right, so I'll say boolean a, and I will print the a here, so it should print the false here. Okay, so it's printing the false here. Okay, the value of a is printing the false. These are the default values. Okay, so on variable, maybe on at the time of interview you will not have much questions, or interview will not ask any kind of question on this particular topic. But definitely if you are having some multiple choice questions, right, in that case it will ask questions on some ranges, or maybe it will ask the questions on default value, or maybe sizes. Okay, so you should aware of these are the this particular chart you should aware. Okay, so depending on that you will get the clear picture. Okay. Okay, so there is second type of data types is the reference data type or non-primitive data types. Okay, so we are not going to cover this particular topic details because we will having separate sessions for each and every non-primitive data types. Okay, but which are the non-primitive data types available? So first one is the string. Okay, so string is basically used to store the sequence of character. Okay, second one is the array. Okay, so array is basically used to store the, basically this is fixed in size and it will store the similar type of data. Similar type of means if I'm saying integer, it will store only integer number. If I'm saying float, it will store the float number. Okay, depending on what type of array you are creating. Okay, then class, it will use to store the objects of the class. Okay, then interface, it will store the collection of abstract method. So interface we will create the to store the collection of abstract methods. Okay, we'll see this in detail, abstract and non-abstract and all this. Okay, and enum, it will store the fixed set of values. Enum will be going to store for the fixed set of value. Okay, so this particular non-referential data we will see in next upcoming lectures in details. Okay, but for this particular session, that's it. Okay, so thank you very much. We'll be meeting in next session.